Hey, thank you guys for tuning in to FOSA Spotlight, where you're in the right place because you want inspiration that leads to empowerment. What a great place to be. You're in the right place, literally, and hopefully spiritually, mentally, and physically. You're in the right place. I am your host, Crystal Boyd. What a pleasure it is to bring this micro episode to you all today. And you know what? I finally got a request. Yeah, so I'm tapping in on a really good subject matter. Someone dear to me that I know I'm putting a special request, and you know, I love fulfillment. So I'm going to do it. What's the name of this topic? Or what's the topic? Making sense. And it came from a conversation that was had about making sense of it all. Like one day it will all make sense. And I just start with a primary basis. It's nothing to really look up definitions and everything. However, I do feel like it's appropriate to talk about what making sense, right? Is it about life? Is it about circumstances, relationships, business, all these other functions of life? So what is making sense of it all? One, I hate to put this in numbers or order, but I think that this is multifaceted, meaning we can't talk about making sense of it all and we just focus on one aspect, such as parenthood, marriages, and all of that. I think it's a combination of things because ultimately it leads me to belief. When I think about making sense of it all, it was a book, Purpose Driven. Discussed this before, my exposure to it, and how it brought to the place when you first open it, tells you it's not about you. So that's a basis where I operate from. Like, it's not about me. I've come into acknowledgement. I love the Lord. He heard my cry. And I'm operating from that basis. So I believe that this life is definitely bigger than me. And as in Romans 8:28, just want to refer back to that because I'd hate to get anything wrong. And while I have access to stuff, I'm going to use it. So Romans 8:28 is going to declare that and we know that all things God works together for the good of those who love the Lord and who are called according to his purpose. See, that's where I am. Because when I knew my purpose, then I can work with that. Now it was a whole nother level of fulfillment and my why. I'm experiencing some things and being able to make sense of that. That's a good basis to start with. While I'm not going to say that every day is going to make sense because I'm convinced that sometime it's going to look like it's coming together and it's not. And I don't know why this has just been on me lately. It's just really, really just been hanging true. But for a while, it felt like I was in the dark. And I think this was where I was just trying to make sense of it all for me. Because I'm taking into consideration the combinations of events in my life, business, personal, those experiences with God, spiritual journey. And it just still feels like I'm just in darkness. And darkness is just a real I can't see type of thing. But just because you can't see doesn't mean something isn't there. It just means that the physical aspect of being able to see may not be there. Does that mean not to trust? No. But I heard something say loud and clear. It was just a question. How do you see in the dark? If I asked the average person, could you see in the dark? They would tell me no. I'm convinced that you can. And I'm not going to go there like we have the vision of like snakes. They're able to see at nighttime. There's some creatures that are able to see at nighttime. We're one of them. But I believe it's a little differently. Hang on to this. You can see in the dark because if you remember what you've seen in the light, that's your ability to see in the dark. Try it out in its most basic format. I can be in the bathroom and totally cut off the light. I remember where the sink is. I remember where the toilet is. I remember where the tub is, the shower. Now, did the darkness change anything? It didn't. Everything is still there. And what I like to think of that as, what God showed me in the light, I shouldn't forget when it's dark. And I think that's how life can be sometimes. Whether your darkness is the blurriness between the day-to-day and not knowing how this is going to be ending, or if you're going to accomplish what it is that you're seeking out. But if you've talked to God about that, some desire in your heart, keep in mind God wants you to have the desires of your heart. He may fine-tune them a little bit if you allow them so you can get the most benefit of it. Remain flexible with God's plan. However, don't forget what God told you just because it got dark on you. Just because adversity creeped in. Stay true to what he told you in the light, because the light is just right. He told you that plainly. You could see that. You could feel that, even though it wasn't there, quote unquote, in the physical. It made sense. But just because of darkness, don't let it not make sense. So, making sense of it all is a very, very big piece of finding your purpose in life and that fulfillment in that purpose. But in this making sense, I'm not going to forsake when it doesn't make sense. I believe that's where you just have to have some peace about continuing to go forward. It was something that I was listening to. Matter of fact, it was Rabbi Jacobson, Meaningful Life Center. Really like just tuning into him sometime. If you guys aren't already connected to him, it's just a good source. He always comes from a different angle, especially on the Old Testament, that I just didn't consider. And all the time we hear of Moses and the Red Sea. Oh my goodness. And it's such a miracle-based example that oftentimes we don't think about the practicality of what that experience was like. And so what he was referring to, and just summarizing this event in another aspect to highlight, is sometimes we're in a different place, and the Pharaoh representing going back into a place where we known something and it made sense then. But that Red Sea didn't make sense because it wasn't parted. It wasn't parted already. Had no idea what was going to happen. But going forward is so necessary. And I'd add on from Mr. Jacobson, Rabbi Jacobson, that sometimes the greatest risk of all is not taking one. I love going forward, and I love that just aspect that he showed in that, because you don't know what the Red Sea was going to be, but letting you know that they made a step forward, took one step, and God parted that. And I'm convinced that it didn't make sense. They probably thought they were going to be swallowed whole. But I'm thankful that they had enough faith to go forward. No evidence that it was just parted and it looked like it was just going to be there. Perhaps even the end. But he showed something that's greater than the physical circumstance of it not making sense. And I'm convinced it's about faith, recalling the fact that you had victory in this situation. So it's a lot of times where God is not going to have something make sense right then, and it will later. But however, trust the in-between. You don't have peace about it, come to God about it, pray about it, allow that peace to be within you. And sometimes we're not knowing ourselves enough, or we need to know ourselves better. That's way better to put it. Learn your level of awareness, sensitivity, All of these things can be indicators that, hey, maybe I'm not trusting like I should. Maybe I'm not believing like I should. Maybe I'm not handling something the way that I should. And I like this so much because it just, it gives us quality in our day to day. That's what I can say. It gives us quality. Because sometimes I just don't even allow my feelings to be feelings. I check my feelings like, why are you feeling this way? Well, this happened. Well, why did it make you feel that way? Does this mean that you don't have some trust in this area? Maybe I was disappointed by someone. Am I expecting too much out of an individual and I'm not relying on God? And I check myself and get myself in line. So it's important for it to make sense, I will say. Certain things. And certain things God just doesn't have it make sense to the appropriate timing. Just hopefully you have your trust in the right place when it comes to this. I love this subject for today. It was an amazing one. Matter of fact, I learned some things and relearned some things. And my call to action is that it's easy when it makes sense, because that's light. But when the lights go off and it's dark, sense can still be made out of that situation. Just trust what was shown to you, and the light is still there even in the midst of darkness. Trust that. You may have to build it every day. You may have to remind yourself every day that everything you need is here. God provided, including your attitude, the faith needed for the day. God doesn't want you to be worried. It takes away from the quality of life. You worry just a little too much, that means you haven't given enough away. So when it doesn't make sense, just trust that it is, and that you have everything you need to do exactly what you need to do. So if you haven't already, would you like, share, subscribe? Oh my goodness, go onto YouTube, check out the channel. There's more than just this episode. Go on down to Spotify. There's plenty of good podcasts, including this one. Okay, that'll be in your favorites. Well, it would be a good idea. It would. And if you guys have any suggestions on more content, I'm so open to that. I love a challenge. I love to come from a perspective that I was a little bit different. I love that. I really, really do. And I love being engaged with my audience. So until next time, okay now, bye-bye then.